Hey, here we are again. Some more math. I know you're loving it. It's what you've been looking forward to all day, right? Who cares what's on Amazon Prime right now? Who needs to go back and watch Mandalorian Season 1 to get ready for Season 2 that's hopefully going to come out this fall, right? You'd rather be doing this right here, right now, right? Okay, so Algebra 1, Unit 2, Lesson 6. All right, so the good news about today is we're really just going to flip the process that we discussed last time with graphing equations of lines. All right, so we're just going to go the opposite way. Now we're going to give you the line and see if you can write the equation. All right, so to start that, all right, here's what I want you to do. So obviously we're not in groups right now with the pandemic, and everybody's kind of in their own spot at the moment. So here's what I would like you to do. Pick any of these 4 points, all right, and then write the equation of the line that you think would be appropriate, and then we'll come back and talk about that. So pause the video, give that a quick chance and see what you have on that, and then we'll come back and discuss it. So go ahead and pause that video and come back and see me. All right, so the first thing that I want you to understand is that when we're writing equations of lines, there are multiple answers. There's not a singular correct answer depending on what point you pick. So what I'm going to do is talk about a couple of things that have to always be true and some things that could vary. So one of the things is, when we think about graphing our line, right, we said that point slope form here is what we want. All right, so we want point slope form. So what we need, and what everybody, no matter what point you pick, whether you picked A, B, C, or D, we should all have the same slope. And we should all understand that now slope is rise over run. Right? So I go up 3 and I go to the right 1. So what I know, no matter what point I pick, we should all have a slope of 3. All right, so everybody's equation should be y equals 3. Then something else. Now the something else all depends on what point you pick. So if you picked A, right? A is the point -2, -4. All right? So if you picked A, then your equation would be, open my parentheses, and then I have x minus x1. So when I subtract a negative, so it says x, I've already wrote an x there, x minus -2 would become x plus 2. And we saw that in our pattern that was always opposite, and then my y would be -4. All right, so now when I look at my next point, all right, if you pick B, B is the point -1, -1. All right, so if you pick that point, now once again, all right, you should still have the same slope. All right, so 3. And then when I do x minus -1, I get x plus 1 and then minus 1. All right, maybe you pick the point C. Okay, so point C is the point 0, 2. All right, so you'd have y equals 3, and then it's x minus 0 and then plus 2. Now, once again, we know from what we did last time that if I have x minus 0, you can leave it like that. That's totally fine. It's acceptable, but that's probably not what you're going to see. All right, so instead of writing x minus 0, we would just write x, and so your equation would just be 3x plus 2, which is slope-intercept form. And then finally, if you pick point D, right, so point D is 1, 5. You would have y equals 3, and then x minus 1, and then plus 5. So what you see here is that everybody, if I were grading you, I would look for this first. Everyone should have the slope of 3. That's not something that can vary, all right? That has to be true for all of you. Now, what can vary is which point you picked. Notice we didn't tell you which point you had to pick. So notice I would grade and give full credit to all 5 of those equations if they were given to me. Okay, so here is the big idea, and it's really a transition from what we talked about last time. So what information is needed to write an equation of a line? It's the same information that's needed to graph a line. We have to have slope and a point. All right, so when we graphed last time, we had to have a starting point. We had to have some point, right? So we had to know somewhere in the coordinate plane where to begin. And then we had to have the slope, or the rise over run, to tell us how to get to another point. Okay, so that's really all we have to have. Now, just as a quick reminder, we talked about these last time as well, right? We have our various forms of an equation. So we have point slope form, which is y equals m times the quantity x minus x1 plus y1. We have slope intercept form, which is really just a right? We talked about this, right? Just as a simplified version of that, when x1 is 0, we come down to this. And then our horizontal lines are y equals b. And then our vertical lines are x equals a. All right? So what I'm going to tell you is if you have a horizontal line or vertical line, you can jump right to these. For everything else, any other line that has some kind of tilt to it, all right, we always want to start with point slope form because it will naturally simplify to this. All right? So if you always do this, you'll be fine. All right, so let's take a look at a few examples here. All right, so now, all right, so when I look at problem 1 here on the back, right, the first thing that we always want to do is find our slope. All right, that's the one thing that we can't have variance on. All right, so we have to understand that. So when I look at that, and it doesn't matter what 2 points you pick any 2 points. So I'm going to pick this point, and I go up 2, and I'm going to go to this point, which is plus 3. So what I see is my slope is 2/3. All right. Now, some of you might be saying, well, I can pick any 2 points, right? So like I'm going to go from this point, our first point here, to this point here. And I'm just going to show you why it doesn't matter. So I'm going to go up, make sure I draw this correctly here. And notice to get on the same level as this point, I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I went up 6. And then I have to go over, all the way over here, right? And so I go over 9 units, so plus 9. Well, that means that my rate of change would be 6 to 9. All right, and it gets back into those equivalent ratios that we've talked about, right? And if I reduce 6 over 9, I get 2 over 3. So that's why it doesn't matter which 2 points you pick. What matters is that once you write it, you always want to get into a habit of reducing it. Now notice, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points identified on this line. Okay, you can pick any of those 5 points to write your equation. I'm going to go ahead and just pick this point right here, -1, 1. It does not matter what point you pick, all right, but we want to pick a good point, all right? So notice I don't really know the exact coordinates here. I could estimate them, but we don't want you to estimate. So pick good corner points, right? And so if I use the slope of 2/3, and I use the point -1, 1, I get x minus -1, which is a positive, and then plus 1, and there's my equation. And that's it. It really should take you about 30 seconds to 45 seconds to do an equation, or write an equation of a line by the time you find the slope, identify your point, all right, and then write your equation. Okay, so let's look at problem 2 here. All right, so when I look at problem 2, once again, let's start with the slope. All right, now the first thing I notice is that this line is going downhill versus this line going uphill. So I should know right away that my slope here will be negative. Okay, so use that to help you. Positive slope, negative slope to help you. I'm going to just use these first 2 points to find my slope. So down 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1. All right, so my slope is -4 over 1. And if you want to just write that as -4, you can. All right, now this time, just for fun, I'm going to pick this point over here. There's just 6, -4. Once again, you can pick any of these points. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 different points identified for you. So if I use this slope, all right, and I use that, all right, and I should put this as y equals 6, and then x minus 6 minus 4. All right, so we're just going to keep using that point slope form. So, right, so this should be your best friend right here, right? So get to know it. So if you remember that, you're going to be solid. All right, so let's come down to problem 3. So once again, let's start by finding slope. I can see right away it's going to be a negative slope, right? It's going downhill. So I'm going to take the last 2 points because it doesn't matter. So if I draw this in, I go down 1, 2, 3, 4. So my slope here is -4. And then to get to this point, I go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my slope is -4/5. All right, now I'm going to pick this point right here. I'm going to pick 0, 2. Once again, you can pick any of these points, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I picked this one just to show you once again. So if I do that, this is 4/5, x minus 0 plus 2. And you could leave it like that if you want. Or if you want to simplify that and just write that as -4/5 x plus 2, that would be wonderful as well. All right, so let's take a look at number 4 here. Once again, I see my line is going uphill, so I know it's a positive slope. All right, so I'm going to go up 1. I'm going to go over 2. All right, so I can see my slope is 1 over 2. Once again, pick any point you want. All right, I'm going to just go ahead and take this point right here, which is -2 and -5. And then I'm going to take those and put that right into our point slope form. So 1/2 x minus -2 becomes a +2, and we have -5. And that's really all there is. All right, so just real quick, we're going to do a couple more problems together. All right, so let's look at the next page here, and we're just going to look at these problems here real quick. All right, so now part of this is recognition, because if I recognize the kind of line, I can jump to a certain type of equation. So for example, when I look at this, I have 3 lines right here. Okay, and what kind of lines are those 3? They are horizontal lines, right? So once again, and this is where recognition can help us, because if it's a horizontal line, I know it has to be y equals something. All right, so y equals b in this case. So now when I look at this, when I start with this top line right here, right, it goes through y equals 10. You can see that the point is 0, 10. So my equation for that guy is just y equals 10. All right, and I look at this guy, another horizontal line. It's got to be y equals something. It goes through y equals 5. Well, there's my equation, just like that. My next line, goes through y equals 3. And then there's my line, just like that. All right? And so once again, that recognition speeds up the process. So looking at number 6 here, right? When I look at number 6, what kind of line, all right, do we have here, right? Yeah, I heard you all the way through, right? From the future you to the past me, I heard you say vertical. I did, all right? Okay, and once again, if it's vertical, we know we can jump right to x equals a, all right? And so now what I have to figure out is, okay, what x value does it have? Well, notice this vertical line goes through x equals 2, and that's my equation. This vertical line goes through x equals 4. There's my equation. This vertical line goes through x equals 6. There's my equation. All right? And that's it. That's how quick and easy it is, all right, to write an equation of a line, as long as you understand a couple things. One, how do you find slope? That's a really, really big thing, right? So you've got to be very comfortable finding rise over run from a graph. And then 2, you have to know your equations, right? So you have to know point slope form. You have to know your forms for horizontal and vertical lines. But that wraps up our work for today. All right, so go ahead and shut the video off, do your video check-in, and then we will finish and do some more of this tomorrow in class. Have a wonderful night. See ya.